So welcome everyone to this session and the last daily meditation session of this week together. Of course, more coming next week, I think, with Una. And my name is Zohar, for those of you who don't know me. Very happy to be here with all of you. Morning for me. See in the chat that people, as always, are joining from various locations on the globe, so perhaps nighttime or afternoon or evening in other places, but all of us equally here together as a community coming together to share these beautiful, beautiful, profound teachings and practices that have been offered to us by countless beings as they've been practicing and exploring them for thousands of years now. So deep welcome to this space of community, both our community that is here present, and we can also connect to the sense of community over time. Those before us, those yet to come, as well as the community of those who are alive and practicing today, but just not here. But they're still part of our large community of practice. And as always, I'm very glad to be here. It's been an interesting week, as many of you know. I haven't been well this week. This has been the one thing I've been doing work-wise every morning. And so it's been really interesting to see that and to feel how the energy always comes when I come into the space and feel all of you here present. And as always, the session today will include Dharma reflection and then practice together of about half an hour, and time for questions and reflections at the end. Hi Kaz, nice to see you. Looking at people for whom it's evening. Wonderful. So this week, we've been exploring wisdom, compassion, and this possible movement from dukkha, from ill-being, from that whole range of experience that goes from a little bit uncomfortable all the way to suffering and distress. That movement from all of that towards well-being and freedom. It's been our exploration this week, and we could say this is our path. This is our path of practice. And we've been doing this, we've been practicing this movement or exploring this movement from ill-being to well-being through remembering wisdom views, such as that our experience is shaped by what we pay attention to and how, the object and the way of relating, such as remembering experience is conditioned, dependently arising. As we were saying yesterday in response to Clive's question, it's dependently arising. The way we tend to see it is as if it's there, independent of other things. And yet the teachings encourage us, remind us to see conditionality, to see things as conditioned, to see what happens to us in our experience when we do. In particular, to see what conditions are there when dukkha, when ill-being is there, and what conditions are there when well-being is there. Because we want to start to make those connections. We make those connections. So, so we want to see dukkha arises with contraction, it arises with demand, and well-being arises with expansiveness, and it arises with tenderness, and it arises with less demand, or we might say demand in a different way. So it arises with less demand for me, less limited and limiting demand. Excuse me. And we've also been exploring compassion as an embodiment and an expression of wisdom. And that's kind of something I want to speak more about today. Compassion is an embodiment of wisdom and an expression of wisdom because it takes into account the conditionality of experience, and that when we meet in a certain way, that reduces the degree of dukkha, of ill-being, of suffering for ourselves and for others. It does it in the moment, and then it does it over time from the root. From the root. So sometimes I speak about compassion as a great power. It's very, very powerful. It's actually a strength. It's not how we tend to think about it. But when it's rooted in wisdom, it actually becomes a real strength. It supports us to act in the world. And I just noticed, and please don't expect me to be able to read all the chat comments as I'm speaking to you, but I noticed Kaz's comment there that she's had an intense week blocking roads out of compassion for all. Yeah, there you go. An example of that. Sometimes it supports us to do, to be really strong in standing up for what we feel is important, what we feel is meaningful, and not only supports us to do that, but also supports it to do it in a particular way, which then nourishes what we wish to see in the world even further. So, interestingly enough, this happens sometimes, doesn't it? That I want to speak about something and then one of you gives an example of it, and that's just wonderful. But I also had my own example, and I'm going to bring that in as well because I've been in Israel now, 6 weeks or 7 weeks, and I've also been protesting a lot, a lot, out of compassion and wisdom. And I want to give one example from a protest Nathan and I went to. I think it was when we were only here about a week or a little bit longer, so it was one of the early ones. And it was a small protest that takes place every week. And we were there protesting, and it just happened that same day there was a protest happening not far from where we were, which was we were protesting against the government policies and for equality, democracy for all. And there was a pro-government protest, which was supporting the government in the policies that it wishes to implement right now, and change in legislation, which will be detrimental for all, according to our views. Anyway, we're standing there in the protest, a small group of people with signs, and thousands, hundreds and thousands of people actually passing us by on their way to the counter demonstration. And I think this was the first large counter demonstration that was happening. So people were quite heated. And as they were driving by or walking by, they were hurling some pretty intense insults at us. We were just quiet with our signs. And they were hurling some pretty intense insults at us. I don't even want to repeat them. But, very, very painful to witness. And to kind of, just to witness maybe. And this is the wisdom, right? So even though it can seem as if, there's a person over there and they hate me and they're saying really horrible things to me and about me. So they're there, I'm here. And here's the wisdom and the compassion views coming through, which is, this is conditioned. This is conditioned. This person is doing this and it's conditioned, but also my response is conditioned, and I can work with it skillfully. I can feel the contraction, which is shutting me down. And I can choose to open and to allow the natural movement of compassion to come through. Allow the natural movement of compassion to come through. And to just feel that and to keep standing there with my sign. Yeah. But instead of feeling disconnection and a block, and to even kind of follow our natural inclination, to feel, oh, hatred is directed at me. It's hatred that goes back. Instead, compassion. And we were standing there, and I felt I couldn't even, it wasn't enough to just feel it. I actually had to say it. So I was saying it very, very quietly because I wasn't needing the other person to hear it. I actually thought that would not be helpful. But as people were hurling insults at me, I was saying, for them, and for all of us, may we all feel safe. May we all feel peaceful. May we all find our hearts release. May we be free from suffering. And just kind of allowing the compassion to move through for self, including myself, and for the other. And, became a very beautiful interaction for me, rather than a kind of a very difficult interaction. And maybe, to be honest, we could say it's both. I still feel very tender when I reflect on it. It's not what I wish for myself. It's not what I wish for anyone else, to be kind of receiving that kind of language just for standing up for what we care about. And yet seeing in the moment that compassion together with wisdom is the appropriate response. So compassion is an embodiment and expression of wisdom. Really important. The wisdom that sees this is conditioned, and the way to change conditions is not by meeting hatred with hatred. It's a beautiful line from the Dhammapada. Hatred does not cease by hatred, but by non-hatred alone does it cease. But that's what we're doing, we're cultivating in our own hearts and minds, this capacity. And wisdom is also an embodiment of compassion, because when we feel compassion for ourselves and for others, that nourishes the wisdom to act in appropriate ways. To act in appropriate ways. So remembering this is possible for us. This path is a path of possibility for us. Not judging ourselves, not judging others, not labeling ourselves or others, but remembering this is a path, a journey, and an exploration. And how we meet our experience shapes it in the moment and over time. It matters. And we have possibilities. Buddha used to say, I love this phrase, this path is onward leading. Onward leading. It leads us to more and more possibility, more and more freedom, less and less suffering for ourselves and others, more and more well-being for ourselves and others, because we're in this together, all of us. All beings on this planet, we're here. We're in this together. This is another wisdom and compassion element. It's really important. We cannot disconnect ourselves. And so we remember this is our path. And we include making mistakes as part of the path. This is how we learn. It's a wisdom path. Therefore, it includes learning. It's a compassion path. Therefore, it includes holding our experience with compassion. Remembering without a heaviness that every moment is an opportunity and part of our journey. How can I attend here and now? How can I attend creativity in the exploration, interest and kindness in the exploration, opening to compassion as a support for ourselves in meeting our experience, inquiring how is experience shaped in this moment and what else is possible? That's our question. Onward leading questions. How is experience shaped in this moment? And what else is possible? So, it's the last morning, so a long ramble for me, but finally time to practice. Let's do some practice together. So, if you're not already in your meditation posture, then please find it or align more fully in it. And as always, we'll have half an hour for a practice together. So taking time to fine-tune the posture, settling more fully and deeply. Into the body, into the posture that you've adopted for this period of practice. Letting the awareness settle into the body as you fine-tune the posture, and inviting the awareness more deeply into the body. Grounding and rooting, collecting, centering the awareness in the body. It's helpful using the sensations of contact between body and seat, body and ground. Just taking some time to arrive, to feel the body, and awareness in the body. And then inviting the awareness to soften and open through the body space. Expanding through the whole body. Letting the awareness fill the whole space of the body. Maybe a little bit larger even, so that you can feel the body held in awareness. Within this wide awareness for the whole body, that intention, practice is an act of kindness, And our practice as a cultivation of compassion and wisdom in ourselves and in the world. If this intention resonates with you, this is something we can come back to through the practice, remembering practice as an act of kindness and a cultivation of compassion and wisdom. You can come back into being supported by this intention. You can also gently question every once in a while what would be a wise and compassionate response to this moment of experience. For this practice time, awareness wide open through the whole body, intention, cultivation of compassion and wisdom, resonating through that expansive and open field. If you like this way of practicing, you can stay with it. Keep softening and opening the awareness to the whole body, through the whole body. If it's helpful to have a more particular object, then you can include the movement and flow of either the breath or of sound, whichever is a more accessible object for you in the practice. Feeling the sound flowing through the space of awareness, or the breath moving through the space of awareness. All of this supported by intention. So let's practice quietly for some time. You're gently opening to notice what you notice in this moment, without judging what's unfolding right now. Interest and kindness, and that intention of compassion and wisdom, and how we respond. And to attend with skill to this moment of experience that is conditioned. Is it helpful to ease the contraction through inviting the body to relax? Or to hold ourselves or our experience with tenderness? Or to gently, kindly, and with curiosity bring our attention more fully and deeply to the awareness in the body, and to the object that we've chosen for this practice. All of these are possible. This moment of experience is conditioned and shaped. Can I meet it skillfully? Let's continue to explore. remembering this is an opportunity to cultivate compassion and wisdom. How can that inform how I meet this moment of experience, whatever I find? Distracted mind, gathered mind, well-being or ill-being. This experience too is shaped in this moment. What would be a skillful response? What is possible? Holding it all in compassion, in interest, in curiosity, in playfulness, and attending more fully to this moment of experience and the next one. Grounded in the body as we do this, supported by intention as we do this, one moment at a time. All of this, our path, all of it part of this trajectory of deepening and growth. The last couple of minutes of the practice, feeling what is most needed right now. What would bring well-being? And opening to that. You're not sure, then I would suggest softening, expanding the space of the body. Softening and opening around any areas of contraction. Holding whatever is unfolding, receiving whatever is unfolding in tenderness. May all beings everywhere be held in tenderness. May all beings everywhere develop wisdom and compassion that free. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering and its causes. May we all be free and live with ease. Taking your time, not rushing to change posture. I'd like to just offer some reflections on Dana before we open to questions for today. As you know, coming here, these sessions are offered in the spirit of Dana, freely offered without fixed price, which makes them open to everyone and makes them also a community responsibility. So all of us together support them to happen through showing up, through our practice, and also through any financial contributions that you can give to cover the costs of the Sangha Life platform, which is itself has costs, and then also, of course, the employment of various people that make these sessions possible. And also to offer something to me for the teachings for this week. So whatever you give this week is shared between Sangha Life and myself. And it's very, very gratefully received, whatever you wish and are able to offer. is very gratefully received and allows teachers such as myself and Zohar Lavie to continue to offer this for the benefit of all. So just putting in the link there for anyone who wishes. I also want to say that I am going to teach a 4-week course with Gaia House in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm putting the link to that also in the chat. If anyone's interested, please feel free to check it out. And yeah, let's see if there's any questions or comments, reflections on the practice today or over the week. If you can, when you put your question in the chat, begin it with question in capitals. That helps me identify the questions. And yeah, let's see what arises. It always takes a little bit of time, and I actually enjoy sitting in silence as I can feel people kind of digesting, reflecting, and typing, all of which takes time. But then I'm also aware that this is a precious time for us together. And it's an interesting, I hope it's okay, Rivka, that I'll reflect on what you've put in the chat, which is that we're all made of our conditions, but some of us choose to feed the bad wolf and not the good wolf. Yeah. It's an interesting one. It's a really interesting one. The conditioned nature of experience, and then of course also what's possible for us is also conditioned. And that fine line, the discernment of seeing the wholesome and the unwholesome, and knowing what we wish to nourish and cultivate in ourselves, and feeling frustrated when it feels like others are doing the opposite. And it's important to have that discernment between the wholesome and the unwholesome. But it's also helpful, I find, in these kind of situations, to see the actions rather than the person. Yeah, so it's like, instead of saying somebody's a bad person, which is not what you're doing, to see, they are feeding unwholesome conditions in themselves and in others. And we can also see that that causes suffering, also for the person, also for others. And this also can support compassion. And sometimes I speak of in these situations when we're facing somebody who's creating a lot of harm, whether it's on a global scale, a larger scale, or a personal scale, is to kind of have compassion to the ignorance. And that's a little bit what Elena's putting in there. Yeah? Some people don't have access to choice or discernment that easily. Yes. And this is, if I know for myself, bringing humility, how many times do I feed the bad wolf, if we like, it's not an easy thing to go against the conditioning, both the human conditioning over generations and the personal conditioning of the particular circumstances of our lives. So discerning, discerning and not trying to necessarily understand it's these conditions or that conditions, but I say, okay, what would support this kind of sense of well-being? What would support the wholesome? And somewhat inside us, we know for ourselves. That's why we're here. It's just not always easy to hear because it's very like a whisper, and it's not always easy to follow because there's other voices that are stronger. We can see it in our meditation practice. We have this beautiful intention. We want to cultivate a quiet, peaceful mind. And then, thought arises and we follow it even when we know it's like, no, it's not what I want to be doing. But it pulls our attention. So, compassion really helpful here with humility, discernment, between the wholesome and the unwholesome. And the discernment between, harmful actions and harmful people. Really helpful. Not easy to practice, but really helpful. So Dina's asking an unrelated question. Will there be more sacred places, retreats with Sangha? That's your favorite retreat. Thank you, Adina. Thank you for reminding me. We were just saying that a while ago. We haven't got one in the calendar. We'll do our best to put one in. And thanks for that reminder. Keep an eye on the website. And if you're not on the mailing list, then please join it. There's another question. In the moment, I often find I space out to keep calm rather than opening compassion, even though that is what surrounds the choice to be present in that way from compassion. So discernment here between being clear, compassion is the intention, but in the moment, sometimes what feels like it's helpful is to space out, and that helps me stay calm, rather than staying in contact with the experience and with compassion. It's an interesting one, Kaz, and I would just encourage you to explore it a little bit, because different things can be skillful responses, even something like spacing out, which may have a negative kind of image in Dharma practice. It may be that it's a skillful response, but I would just play with, what about bringing compassion to yourself in that situation? So you don't necessarily need to kind of be in contact with the big things that are maybe too much, but just bringing compassion to yourself, or bringing awareness to somewhere in the body. So it's not like you're completely spaced out into distractions, but you're kind of finding a ground and a support in the body, or in compassion phrases, by the way, which is what I was doing in that protest, which helps you stay centered and grounded and supported in what you're doing. So I would just say, see this as part of your practice, but with a real creative, open mind. What helps and why? Yeah, so we can also explore what is it in the spacing out. Yeah, what is it that I'm actually calling spacing out, and what is it in the spacing out which is helpful? Yeah, which is keeping me calm. Could be really interesting to explore. So I hope that responds. What do we bring to bear in trying to forgive ourselves for the countless times we fail? Jane, thank you for that. Compassion, humility, wisdom. Yeah. So the wisdom that sees, this actually relates really well to the previous comment we were talking about, to seeing we are conditioned by all this momentum of things that we've been repeating, some of them not even ours, from family, society, whatever. That is a strong momentum of habit. So if I take just that simple example of our meditation practice, and the mind, following a thought, which is not my intention, it's not what I want, but I get pulled into it. And then I see, yes, that was a conditioned momentum. And any moment when I stop that momentum and I pause it, even if it's for a split second, that's changing things. So it's the wisdom views that help us. Yeah. And then the compassion, tuning into the intention of compassion, as we tune into that supports forgiveness, also supports the lessening of that momentum. And the kind of holding yourself in tenderness, as we've been doing, relaxing the contraction, easing the body, all of that really helps. And body awareness as a support for forgiveness. Like just the sense of, this hurts. Not following my intention is painful. It's painful, but it happens. It happens, not perfect. What happens is painful, it happens. Can I bring the forgiveness? And again, the wisdom comes in so that I can learn and move on. Otherwise, we get stuck in that judgment that sticks us in place. Yeah. So hopefully that responds. When we see others who are making wise choices and being generous and wise in the world, sometimes what arises is an envy. Any clues on how to practice with envy? Yeah, you guys are pulling out all the wonderful questions this week. So sometimes when we see somebody else that seems to be, able to forgive themselves, to work well, in the world, to be generous, all of that, then we feel deflated in response. And I think, again, something really interesting there is to tune into why. What is that comparing mind? Because again, there's a sense of, oh, they've got it and I haven't, and then I'm envious, but there's a disconnection. And it can be, again, real tenderness with yourself there and compassion to yourself. This hurts. Envy hurts. Jealousy hurts. They're emotions that are actually quite hard to bear. And if we tune into the emotion in the body, we can feel that, and that can support us to have compassion and forgiveness for ourselves, because what tends to go in there as well is the sense of, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And then the inner critic jumps in, more judgment, and it's more difficult to disengage. So compassion, tenderness to yourself, feeling the painfulness of it, and then saying, in that envy is my aspiration, my intention. I want to act with more generosity in the world. Yeah. I want to kind of make more wise choices, and something that I wish for. There's an intention there. Can I feed that? Can I nourish that? Yeah. Can I see the beauty in that? So I would really encourage you to do that, and then see if you can kind of have a sense of appreciation for this is possible. Yeah. And if that particular person is too difficult, think about the Buddha or the Dalai Lama or somebody that inspires you in a more full way. Yeah, and just kind of, it's inspiring. This means this is possible. Yeah, this is also just a human being. It's possible. And see if that supports as well. Yeah. Yeah. So Kaz, I'm just going to go back to you, but I will also thank everyone for being here. And if you need to go already, I'm just going to say another sentence in response to Kaz's follow-up. Thank you all for being here. It's been lovely to be with you this week, and I think I'll be back in July. I think that's the plan. Looking forward to it already. So go well, everyone. Yeah, so checking what's spaced out, the feeling is calm but almost empty of thought. That's interesting. It's what we aspire to in meditation practice. So yeah, I would keep exploring it experientially. What's going on there, and is there actually something wise there that's saying it's not actually a spacing out, but actually a kind of calmness that you can access, which is probably nourishing you in that space. That's what you said. It's helpful. So yeah, keep exploring. Sometimes we label something very intuitively, but when we explore the experience, it might actually be something else. So keep exploring, seeing maybe this calm is not actually a spacing out, but a capacity to be grounded and to nourish yourself in a challenging situation. So wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for your presence. Oh, thanks, Joss, for that reminder. Yeah. Actually, 2 more. Day retreat with Bristol Insight, and that's in a couple of weeks, and then a Sangaseva day in Tower Hamlets in London on the following Sunday. So lots of things to follow up. I will send Sangha Live all the links so that they can send it to you guys, and or put it up, whatever they do, in the description of the recordings. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Go well. It's been wonderful, and I'll see you soon.